Hello, welcome to FeedNC's October food demo. I'm Chef Brendan Krebs. I'm going to be doing flavors of Latin America today with you. As you can see, we're doing it a little different this time around. We're doing it in my home, so if you hear any barking or whimpering, it is just my assistants, my two dogs, Jack and Daisy. Just want to say thank you for purchasing your meals. They go a long way towards fulfilling our mission at FeedNC of helping feed those in need, helping me with training of the culinary students in the job training program. So with that, we're gonna start with the October food demo of Latin American flavors. So we're gonna start with a simple dessert. It's a flan. Flan is known in many regions. It's very similar to a creme brulee. It's the same concept. It's just an upside down version. The origins are France, Portugal, Spain. It's taken its roots into many Latin American countries: Brazil, Peru, Venezuela, Mexico. It's egg custard with a caramel. So right now what I have here is a simple syrup of sugar and water, and we just want to get it to a nice caramel color. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes. That's why I started a little early. And what we do is just pour equal amounts into the bottoms of ramekins. You don't want to grease the ramekins or anything. You just pour equal amounts in, and you just see I'm swirling it to get equal coverage all the way around. You see that nice golden color. So start with that and get the bottoms coated. You want to just get even amounts in all of the ramekins, or as even as possible. That way when you're serving it, all of your guests get the same amount of the caramel. We'll set these aside for the moment. And then we'll start with our custard. I have weighed out and measured out our ingredients already. Right here I have 5 whole eggs and 2 egg yolks. We'll start those in a stand mixer. You can do this by hand or with a electric mixer. If you do it by hand, it's really a lot of work. You'll wind up with a putt by forearm because you do have to whisk it for 3 to 4 minutes to get it to the consistency you want. So in a stand mixer or with an electric hand mixer, you would start on a medium speed, slowly whisk in the egg and egg yolk, and add 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. Turn the speed up slightly. And you just want to incorporate the sugar, have it fully dissolve before you add the next ingredients. The next ingredients will be a cup of whole milk, a cup of heavy cream, and 1 15-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk. Sweetened condensed milk is milk which has been whole milk which has been evaporated, and then added sugar to it. So that is the sweetened. You can get evaporated milk. If you do have evaporated, you can't find sweetened, or if you just have a can of evaporated milk lying around in your house, you can use that. Just add another teaspoon of sugar to the recipe. It's a lot of sugar, it seems, but once you taste this dessert, it's not very sweet. It's very egg custard based like. So we're going to pour the milk in, and we just want to start that on a medium speed. 2 to 3 minutes will be all that it will take. Once that is done, we pour it back into our ramekins. The ramekins, you can use a ladle, which I actually may do just to be safe. And you want equal amounts of the custard mixture in each of the ramekins. This can also be done in a 9-inch pie pan. You would want to use a glass pan if possible. It'll just be a larger shape. Then you can just cut it into wedges like you would a pie. These ramekins are nice. They've got a nice little lip on them, so they kind of give you a gauge of where you want your custard to be. You always want to have it in a deep well. Same with the creme brulee or anything like that, because the next step is we take a hot water bath. So we've got some hot water. I just brought it to a simmer, so about 180 degrees. You don't have to temp it. And then you just want to carefully pour the water so it about halfway covers the ramekin. Purpose of the hot water is that it will give it an even cooking temperature all around. The water, can only get as hot as the oven. We have a preheated oven, 350 degrees. If you don't feel comfortable carrying a pan full of hot water, you can always pour the hot water in when you get to your oven. So we're going to set the time set it for 45 minutes. We'll check them after 45 minutes. This can take up to an hour. It depends on the variations of your oven and things. So we'll check it after 45 minutes. What you want to do when you check it, take a knife and insert it into the center. The knife comes out clean, it's done. After the removal from the oven, you'll let it sit room temperature for at least an hour, and then you can wrap it and put it in the refrigerator and refrigerate for at least 2 hours before serving, preferably overnight, just to give it a chance to fully set and cool. All right, the next dish we're gonna do is our appetizer. So we have a scallop ceviche, and right here I have some fresh bay scallops. It's important to get fresh scallops. You don't want to get frozen scallops. Frozen scallops tend to be pumped with a brine, saltwater solution, sometimes some sugar is added to it. So they'll start out this size when they're fresh, but when they cook, they'll shrink up and shrivel up and be the size of a pencil eraser, and you really don't want that. You can use sea scallops. Sea scallops will just take a little longer to marinate and cook in the juice. So a ceviche or escabeche or ceviche is a Peruvian-inspired seafood dish. It is not cooked with heat. It is cooked with the acids of a citrus fruit. Most typically is lime juice. Other juices you can use are lemon juice and grapefruit juice, but the lime juice has the nice flavor and acidity to it. Ceviche is in a lot of South American cuisines, Central American cuisines, typically around the coasts. You can use shrimp, squid, any firm-fleshed whitefish to replace the scallops. So a bay scallop is this small size here. Sea scallop is the larger size. And if you ever go to the store and you see something that says U10 or U12, U30, that is the size. The U is under. So U10 would be under 10 to a pound. So that's a pretty large scallop. U12 under 12 to a pound. U50 under 50 to a pound. Same with like a shrimp. But again, use fresh. You can get these at Harris Teeter, Food Lion. I got these at Lake Norman Butchery in Mooresville. If you go there, Sam will hook you up. Sam will also hook you up with a nice flank steak for the meal. So we're going to start with some lime juice. Got 3/4 of a cup of lime juice. I already squeezed this out. Again, fresh is best. If you use the bottled, make sure that you look at it and it's not concentrated. You need not to have a lot of water content to it. And the concentrated is that. So orange juice. You don't have to use orange juice. I like to use the orange juice just because it adds a sweetness to it. The lime is a bit tart. So we've got lime juice, orange juice so far. We're going to do diced 1 whole jalapeno. And after I mix this together, I'll just show you quick how to seed and dice a jalapeno carefully. This is about half an onion, red onion diced finely. And just mix this together. And then finally we've got cilantro, loosely packed, about 3/4 of a cup of cilantro. This will sit in your refrigerator 4 hours. This will fully cook in a 4-hour time period and be very tender. The flavors will all meld together into the scallop. It'll be a very tender dish. You don't want to leave the scallops in too long. 12 hours is about the maximum that you would want to leave the scallops in this juice. Otherwise, they'll become very mealy, and you don't want that. So I'm going to set this aside in the refrigerator for now. I'll just show you a couple dicing techniques just to help you make things easier. So with jalapenos, any kind of hot pepper, I always like to wear gloves. You can pick these up. You can pick up exam gloves or food service gloves at a grocery store or pharmacy. But the oils in the peppers will linger on your hands for a while, and it makes things uncomfortable. Some people have a little tolerance to it. I just don't want to risk it. And some jalapenos are hotter than others, and you don't know just by looking at it how hot it's going to be or how much of the capsaicin is going to be in there and be stinging your hand. So just take off the stem. You just take off the membrane. You want to remove the seeds and the membrane, and it's real easy. You just kind of scrape through with your thumb. Flatten it out. Sharp knife. Always keep the tip of your knife on the board and just rock gently back, sliding slightly through to get through. They look like little matchsticks. Turn your knife, turn your jalapeno, and again, just rock. And you want to dice them pretty finely, and you want a nice even dice on them. Nobody wants to bite into, a really large chunk of jalapeno in most dishes. We're just using these to enhance the flavor, add some heat, but you don't want to have that really large chunk. This is the same thing that I show the culinary students when I'm teaching them. It's very important. Use the heel of your knife and keep your tip of the knife on the board and rock gently. I already got some set aside. We'll just add a little more to it. That's the other thing I think you've seen as I've got this. I had all of my ingredients prepared ahead of time. That just makes things easier for when you're cooking. Just have everything in place. It's a French term called mise en place, and it will really help when you're prepping things. You don't have to go bouncing back to your refrigerator or into your pantry to get ingredients. Just have everything out in place. So the onion, quick, easy way to do an onion is cut off the one end. You want to leave the root end intact. Cut the end off. Cut the onion in half. And with the tip of your knife, gently slide. You don't want to go all the way through. Go through to right around where the root end is. Keeping as even as possible. And keep your tip of the knife on the board and rock with your heel, keeping your thumb under and your fingers bent back. Some people call this the arthritis grip. It is just very easy. And we're down to the end of the onion. So nice even cuts, very easy to cook that way or use raw. Again, nobody wants it large, you know, get a nice little small chunk onion and get a big chunk. You want everything to be nice and uniform. Keep things easy to cook. Things will cook easier if they're all, and better if they're all uniform, or they'll have a better mouth feel and mouth flavor if they're all cut the same. So we're gonna do a flank steak. And flank steak, and I'm gonna use some home decor to give a little demonstration. We have right here, this is where the flank comes from. So it's a very highly used muscle, therefore it is very, very tough, very grainy. You can see in here the grain of the meat. So this is one that you want to cook very quickly, high heat, and slice very thin. So we have some coriander, and a lot of people will be confused, especially Asian and Hispanic people, more Asian. Coriander is the seed of cilantro. Coriander and cilantro, however, taste nothing alike. Coriander has a more lemony lime flavor to it, and this is the seed, whereas the cilantro is the stem and leaf of the plant. So what I want to do is just give a quick toast on the coriander. That just brings out the natural oils and flavors of the seed. Again, with everything that I'm trying to do, you want to use as fresh as possible. So if you're going to buy your spices or herbs or things like that, don't go and buy, you know, that big gallon jug of herbs and spices from Costco. You can, but you'd want to then keep them in a dark, cool place, preferably a freezer. So buy them as you need them, buy smaller amounts, buy fresh as much as possible, or, you know, they're not going to be fresh herbs all the time, but the spices and things like that, buy them in smaller quantities so you'll be able to use them up. We're just going to get a quick toast on these. And then got a coffee grinder. And when you toast the coriander, or you toast any spices or any things that you have, it brings out that aroma. Like I said, it brings out the oils. Right now, got a really citrusy kind of a smell from the coriander. So we're just gonna give this a couple quick pulses, maybe. There we go. Coffee grinder is a great way to get nice fresh ground spices. You could get a pepper mill for all of your spices, but again, how many pepper mills do you really need? So right now I just ground this up and it has that nice lemony scent to it. You can see it's still got some texture to it. Pour that out. We're going to, and this is a rubbed steak, so it really is important to rub the seasoning on. This is some cumin. It is toasted cumin. I toasted it earlier. It was ground. I could not find cumin seeds. Cumin seeds aren't very common. You can find them specialty marts, places, Mexican marts and things like that. But cumin looks very much like if you've seen a caraway seed, the seeds that are in rye bread. Looks very similar to that, but it has a flavor nothing like it. It's very, cumin to me is very earthy, kind of pungent. You don't want to use a lot, but some people really do not like the flavor of cumin. I really do. It's got that earthy, natural flavor to it. So we're just rubbing in the cumin and the coriander. And we're rubbing it in, and you can see it's getting into the grain of the meat. Some fresh cracked pepper. Some salt. And again, just rub in a little bit of oil on the surface. It helps the herb and the spices, they stick better. When you're cooking meats, you want to always bring your meats to room temperature before you cook them. They'll cook more evenly and give you a better cook on them than if you just take it straight from the cooler. It takes, a lot of energy to cook and bring up a piece of meat from cold, from 35, 36 degrees to the internal temperature of 120, 130 degrees, which is what you would want. So we're just gonna cook this over, I've got this grill plat that has been heating for most of the morning, so it should be good and hot. We'll just lay that across. We've got about medium-high heat right now. Got a little sizzle going on. For medium rare, 2 to 3 minutes on each side will be plenty to get that. Medium well, 3 to 5 minutes, or I'm sorry, medium 3 to 5 minutes. Medium well, 5 to 7. Well done. You can eat the bottom of your shoe and it'll taste better. But well done, 7 to 10 minutes on each side. But that will be what you'll want. So now we're gonna do the accompaniments for it. Right here I have some black beans. They're fresh black beans, or dry black beans that I soaked overnight. And now I've just put some water over them, just enough to cover the beans. And dry black beans are, in my opinion, better than canned. Canned is a quick, easy option. But dry black beans, they're gonna come out with a better texture, better flavor. So we're gonna start those out on a high heat, bring them to a boil until they get tender. And we're gonna work on some rice as well right now. You wanna soak the beans overnight, 12 to up to 24 hours to help them dry, and they'll cook faster. If you start dry beans without soaking them, they'll take 2 to 3 hours to cook fully. If you soak them overnight, 12 hours, they'll take an hour, maybe 45 minutes to cook till they're tender, sometimes less, depending on how full your pan is. So our steak is sizzling away. We're gonna start some rice. So we're gonna start rice in a hot pan, and we're doing what's called a peel-off method. Everybody has probably heard of rice peel-off. Well, peel-off is actually a method of cooking. It's not a type of rice per se. Peel-off has come to be known as rice with something in it. But the peel-off method is when you take your dry rice and you cook it, you toast it first in a little bit of oil with some aromatics. And the aromatics in this case are going to be some onions and garlic, and then we'll add some fresh cilantro at the end. You always want to start in a hot pan. So I got the pan hot. The pan is getting hot, Then you add your oil after the pan is hot. Let the oil heat till it's simmering or shimmering. Add your onion, add your garlic. And cook those for a couple minutes till they start to get translucent. Then you'll add your rice. And the key to a good rice peel-off is you want to toast the rice kind of slowly. You toast it, and each grain will get coated in the oil, and that will keep the rice from being sticky, and it'll also make your rice very tender and flavorful because you're bringing out some sugars and some flavors from just toasting other than just white rice. Steak is starting to look pretty good. It's got some good marks. We'll let it go just a little longer on that side and we'll flip it. For the beans, I like to flavor it with some tomatoes, some jalapeno, some garlic, just to give it some extra flavor. Throw a little chili powder, a little brown sugar, some hot sauce in there. You can use a jarred salsa or something like that, and you want to just flavor it with those things. Add as little salt as possible. You can get plenty of flavor from other things. So I always like to take out of the plum tomato, which is this plum tomato, Roma tomato, cut it into quarters, and then each quarter with the tip of your knife, you can just kind of fillet down. You can use a fillet knife. This is very much like, if you've ever filleted a fish, it's that same motion. Start at the tail, and then you work your way up. And you just take out the seed and the middle meat of the tomato. Seeds just added a lot more different texture, and the middle of it is very watery, so we don't want that in there. We just want the meat of the tomato. And again, with the tomato, just dice it, same concept as the jalapeno or the onion, just very. All right, we've got some nice toasting on our onions and garlic. So we just want to stir in the rice and get everything nice and coated. You don't want to overstir it. If you overstir rice, it will start to release the starches and make it sticky and gummy. And you don't want that. You flip the steak. It's got some nice color on it. Let that go a couple minutes on that side. When you're doing a peel off, rice is typically, it's a 2 to 1 ratio of water to rice. So if you do a cup of rice, you will do 2 cups of liquid. In this case, I've got some chicken stock. But because you're cooking the rice slightly before you're adding the water or stock, you want to use just slightly less. So just under 2 cups of water. That way it'll be nice and fluffy when you're done and not over sticky. If you add too much liquid to it after it's already been cooking, it will wind up being sticky and gooey. You always want to add all the water at once or all the liquid at once. Never want to add more at the end because that'll just make it gummy. So right now, you can see the onions are a little bit browned, the garlic's a little browned, and there's just a little golden color to the rice. And that's what you're looking for with a good rice peel-off. With a peel-off, you can add just about anything to it. Real classic is celery, carrots, and onions, which is known as the mirepoix. You can sprinkle in some toasted almonds. You can do just about anything. Some places they'll add the meat right to it, and it'll be just a one-pot meat and rice dish. So what we'll do is just bring this to a quick boil. Then we'll cover it, let it simmer. Starting to smell pretty good in here. We got These nice flavors going. The only way really to know if the beans are done or not is you need to give it a taste. It's a little hard still. You want it to be soft. Canned beans have that different texture to them. They're very, very soft. If you're cooking a dry bean, you want to have a little more texture to it. Right about now in the cooking process, we can add a little bit of salt. You don't want to over salt. You don't want to start them in salted water, because if you start them in salted water, you can always add salt to things. You can never really take salt away. And the beans are very, very absorbent. They absorb a lot of flavors, so they will absorb the salt. And you wind up with a very salty bean. When the beans are nearly done, we will add the tomato, chili powder, some brown sugar. The brown sugar just adds a little sweetness and a little more body to it. So add some hot sauce. Any hot sauce is good. I just had this lying around, the Valentina. It's one of my favorites. My son really likes it, so we keep quite a variety of different hot sauces around. I think the cabinet down next to Ryan has quite a stock full of hot sauces in there. So we are not going to have time to fully cook all of the rice, all of the beans and everything in this demo, but I do have some cooked from earlier. So I will do a quick plating of the entrees and dessert. So you see how I'm poking this right now? When you get used to cooking, you've been cooking for a while, you can kind of get a feel for how the meat is done. So easy way to do it is you take your palm and leave it wide open. That's rare. You take your thumb, you put it to your pointer. That's medium rare. You go to your middle finger. That's medium. Index finger. That's medium well. And you go thumb to pinky. That's well. So general on touch is you can touch scale it and know by touching your hand and touching the meat. More safe way to do it if you're cooking at home, use a meat thermometer, probe it. 120 degrees is medium rare, 110 is rare, 130, 135 is medium, 138 to 142-ish is medium well. Meat will always carry over. So if you're looking for a medium rare and you temp your steak and it's 110, 112, take it off. It will cook up to the next temperature. That is the other key with meat is you always, before you slice it, you want to give it a rest. So want to take the meat off of your heat and let it rest 5 to 8 minutes before you slice into it. Right now, all the juices in there have all been moving around, kinetic energy, just moving around a lot. The juices will reabsorb back into the center of the meat. If I was to cut into this right now, juices would go everywhere. If I let this rest for 5 to 8 minutes, a little longer if you want it a little more well done, because it will carry up some, a bit. Then you slice into it. There will be some juices, but it won't be as much. So we're gonna let this rest for a few. While that's resting, first I will show a quick. So I've got the flan from earlier. I made this last night. You want to carefully go around the edge. You can use a knife or a metal spatula like I'm using. And you just want to go all the way around the edge till you can feel it loosening. Sometimes it works on the first try, sometimes it doesn't. There we go. And then that is the caramel all drizzled off the side. I did miss a little bit, so there's a little cut, but a little whipped cream. You could also drizzle that with caramel sauce, a little more caramel sauce, or you could sprinkle with some cinnamon or cocoa powder. Here I'm just using what I have available in kitchen. So we've got a traditional flan, caramel on top, a little whipped cream, some blueberries. The ceviche hasn't obviously set for that 4-hour period that we need, but I can still show you how to plate it up. It's very simple. You don't want to leave you don't want a lot of juice in your bowl, but you do want some. So just take a slotted spoon. It's just a fancy Cosmo glass that I had. You can put it in any kind of dish. And this is kind of a tapas type appetizer with, this could be 2 to 3 people serve. The ceviche could have, could garnish with some diced avocado or anything like that. But this is just a real simple, classic presentation. And it just comes with some tortilla chips or, torta bread. There it is. Ceviche, I'll just garnish it with a lime wedge. Rice is just about there. Again, got some rice from earlier that I cooked up this morning. Cilantro's in there, giving it a little bit of green tinge. Center of the plate. Some beans that I did. You see the tomatoes in there, onion, garlic, and the steak. So it's rested for a good bit. One end is a little thicker, as you can see. The other end is little thinner. So the thinner end is going to be your more medium well. Let's see how there's not a lot of juices coming out on the board. And I'm slicing it fairly thin. You always want to slice, I mentioned earlier with the grain, you always want to slice it against the grain. If you were to slice it with the grain going this way, you'd wind up with a very stringy, tough piece of meat. So if you slice it thinly and you slice it away from the grain, you're going to wind up with a nice tender cut. Juices are still in there. We've got a nice medium rare. And there is our flank steak, coriander, and cumin rub. So that is our October cooking demo. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you for purchasing the meal tickets and the meals. I really enjoy cooking them for you. I enjoy your feedback. If you have any feedback for me or any questions, you can email me at bkrebs@feednc.org. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have regarding this meal or any others. You can always just stop by and talk to me as well. But again, thank you very much. These meal purchases go a long way in securing the funds that we need to continue the mission of FeedNC. And now more than ever, I feel that it's needed. So enjoy your meal. Thank you.